Tonight, the White House taking on TikTok. Could this really be the end to the widely popular app in the United States? President Biden delivering an ultimatum to the owners of the Chinese company, demanding they sell their shares or their app will be banned. A growing number of lawmakers supporting that push, arguing American data is at risk in the hands of China. But can the government really stop 100 million Americans from using the app? We'll take a look at how a ban would put the work into practice. Also breaking tonight, killed in custody. 10 people charged with murder after the death of a man inside of a Virginia mental hospital. His family today shown video of his final moments at the hands of police. What they're saying tonight about the horrors they witnessed on that tape. Collision course, the U.S. military releasing video of that Reaper drone showing Russian fighter jets dumping fuel on it, then clipping a propeller, while U.S. officials say the video is proof Russia was lying about the confrontation. Also tonight, the $30 billion lifeline, 11 banks coming together to save First Republic Bank after fears it would go under. But will this be enough to stop the widening crisis? Plus, trashing Paris, demonstrators clashing with police, furious after the president overrode his own parliament to raise the retirement age, cars burning and garbage piling up on the streets as sanitation workers strike over the move. We'll have a full report from Paris. And an international crime ring busted after allegedly stealing millions of dollars worth of jewelry from elderly victims in California. What they used those stolen goods to buy, and where police just seized that massive bounty. Top story starts right now. And good evening. Welcome to Top Story tonight. Could time be running out for TikTok? The future of the widely popular app is in jeopardy, at least in the U.S., as a growing number of lawmakers and now even the president call on the Chinese-based company to make some major changes or risk getting booted out of American app stores entirely. TikTok, which has more than 100 million users in the U.S., exploded in popularity during the early days of the COVID pandemic. The highly adaptive algorithm keeping users engaged for hours. But the price you pay to view that highly curated content is often your personal data, which can include contacts, calendar appointments, and your location. And many critics fear that data could be handed right over or already is in the hands of the Chinese government. Amid growing pressure to secure American data, President Biden now calling on the owners of TikTok to divest their shares or the app will be banned in the U.S. But TikTok so far not bowing to that pressure. Kristen Welker tonight leads us off with more from the White House.
Tonight, a dramatic ultimatum from the Biden administration to the Chinese owners of the hugely popular app TikTok. Sell your shares in the company or face a possible ban of the app in the U.S., a source close to the company tells NBC News. It comes after bipartisan pressure on the White House to take action against the app, which has 100 million monthly users, from students to small businesses. The fear? The FBI warns the Chinese government has stolen more of Americans' personal and corporate data than any other country, and experts say TikTok could be giving them access to American users' information, including contacts and calendars, location, and could allow them to target people with specific videos.
1/3 of Americans get their news from TikTok every single day. 1/6 of American youth say they're constantly on TikTok. That's a loaded gun, Congressman.
TikTok is responding tonight, writing in part, if protecting national security is the objective, divestment doesn't solve the problem, saying they are already implementing robust third-party monitoring. The Chinese government saying the U.S. hasn't been able to prove with evidence that TikTok threatens U.S. national security. Former President Trump had pursued a TikTok ban in 2020, but was blocked in federal court. Now the Biden administration threatening a similar move, a major shift in policy amid mounting tensions with China.
Does the president think that Americans should be on TikTok?
What I can speak to is what the president believes that he needs to do, which is making sure that the safety and privacy of Americans are protected.
Kristen joins us tonight from the White House. Kristen, I want to go back to that moment in your piece where you were questioning the White House press secretary, and I'm a little confused why she dodged your question. And I know you can't read her mind, but it was a fair question, right? They're looking to ban it for a reason.
It's a really good question, Tom. And you're right. I don't know exactly why she wouldn't answer, but here is my best analysis of the way she addressed that. The administration is deeply concerned about the national security risks that TikTok poses. You heard them say that. My sense is the press secretary, other top officials here, and Tom, I've tried about everyone. They're hesitant to directly weigh in because there is this ongoing multi-agency review of TikTok underway. Now, look, in addition to that, any final decision would carry huge implications and is also likely months away. So I think that's why you're seeing the hesitation there to directly weigh in.
Yeah, and Kristen, also, you know, and we're going to get into this in a panel discussion right after your report, but the Biden administration used TikTok to try to court voters during the 2020 election, and they have utilized influencers to spread certain messaging. Is the White House concerned about any backlash from everyday American voters who use TikTok a lot every day?
No doubt that's a factor, Tom. That's part of why this ultimatum that they're giving to the parent company of TikTok is coming months after growing bipartisan pressure on Capitol Hill. Look, nearly 1 in 3 Americans use TikTok. If the administration actually moves forward with trying to ban it, there would undoubtedly be some political backlash among some of TikTok's most active users. And you have to think about those young voters, Tom, who helped propel the president to the White House back in 2020. Now, look, it's worth noting there could also be a legal storm of challenges as well. As I noted in my piece, former President Trump tried to ban TikTok back in 2020. And he was blocked by the courts. So if they moved forward with this, you could see a similar response this time. And
Kristen, before you go, I know you have some new reporting. The U.S. is not the only big country trying to enforce this ban on TikTok.
That's right. In fact, the UK became the latest Western country to ban TikTok today on all government devices. Canada, the European Union have imposed similar bans. All have the same concerns about privacy, about national security. It is worth noting, Tom, there are also some real geopolitical implications here as well. Tensions, as you know, mounting between the U.S., its allies, and China over a range of issues from Taiwan to Russia's war in Ukraine. And this is really one more data point that could add to that ongoing friction, Tom.
All right, Kristen Welker leading us off tonight here on Top Story for more on this potential ban on TikTok and the wide-ranging implications, plus what it all means for about 100 million Americans. I want to bring in our panel tonight, starting with Stu Wu from the Wall Street Journal. He spoke exclusively to TikTok CEO Shou-Zi Chew about Biden's threat to ban the popular app. We'll have more on his interview in a few seconds. Jamil Jaffer joins us tonight. He's the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute and former senior counsel to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And Angela Senadella, you know her, of course. She's one of our legal analysts here on Top Story, but she also has more than 1 million followers. She's at The Lawyer Angela on TikTok and has grown a huge following because of her legal, I know it's not advice, but it's her legal talks on TikTok. Stu, I want to start with you. The Wall Street Journal broke this story about the Biden administration making this move. You had that big interview today, so I'd like to start there. Explain to us what you learned from the CEO of TikTok about what the company's solutions are to the U.S.'s security concerns.
Yeah, I actually met the CEO, Shou-Zi, in Washington earlier this week, but they had already known that CFIUS had given, or the U.S. government had given them this ultimatum to sell the company. So he was really frustrated, and he thinks they're not getting a fair shake in Washington. He says, okay, U.S. government, you're bringing up all these national security fears, but they're not specific. And he says, I have a $1.5 billion plan to make sure that the Chinese government can't touch his data. And he doesn't think Congress members are looking at it seriously.
Okay, Jamil, I got to go over to you now because some people may be watching this. They may not be on TikTok, but you can't deny that more than 100 million Americans are on this platform, right? But a lot of them are 14-year-olds doing TikTok dances to Meghan Trainor videos, or they're listening to rap songs from Ice Spice, who's a TikToker, or they're just having some fun with their friends. Why is this a national security concern?
You know, Tom, there's a variety of reasons why this presents national security concern. One, the data that's being pushed to these users, these children, the adults that are on TikTok, a lot of that is Chinese-developed content designed to shape American views and impressions of the world. That's number one. But more importantly, all the data that's being collected. Those videos may not be important in themselves, but the people you share them with, your network, where your location is, all that data, when combined with the other data that the U.S. government has now made clear the Chinese government has stolen from the OPM database to Experian credit card data to Marriott hotel records. All that information combined together, training AI algorithms can present a huge, massive national security threat that can spread over dozens of years as they run very sophisticated human intelligence operations against Americans as they join the government and the like.
Angela, you sort of shocked me, right? Because you're a lawyer, you went to Harvard, you already had sort of this great career, and then you built this side hustle, if you will, through TikTok, like a lot of other people have. But I was sort of surprised when I asked you if you thought it was a national security concern.
Well, for me personally, I don't see it as a concern. I'm a lawyer. I know what to post. I don't post anything that's even remotely compromising. And everything that I post is just entirely above the line. That said, we have cameras now in every house across America. Even in Kim Kardashian's house, we have her daughters posting TikToks. We have people across the country.
You're saying it's an
TikToks.
Indirect surveillance system is the point you were making to me.
Absolutely, because now the Chinese government does indeed have access to cameras inside everyone's house.
Is there anything you post on TikTok when you do the settings, when you sign up for TikTok, that could be compromised that you wouldn't want in the hands of Chinese or Chinese spies?
Yes, so I am aware of privacy policy, so I also know you can technically opt out of a lot of these things.
But do you trust TikTok? Do you trust the Chinese government that they follow that and they're not sharing your data?
Well, do you trust any app or any tech company today? I mean, they all take data in ways that they can. I trust that they're following the privacy policy. I think the issue with this company being owned by China is that according to Chinese law, they can technically take any data they want from a U.S.-owned company if they are part of that overarching Chinese company. So even right now, if China is not taking our data, they have the option in the future.
Jamil, talk to me about that point, right? Because Angela brings up a good point. Are there now 100 million cameras in Americans' homes, and essentially some Chinese groups, if they want to, could spy on us?
Well, that's exactly right. Angela makes exactly the right point, which is that not only are these cameras there, but because of Chinese laws, Angela rightly points out, the Chinese government can get access to data anytime. And people say, well, you know, the U.S. has surveillance laws too. But of course, our surveillance laws operate under a separate judicial system with independent judges. There is no such thing in China. It's the judge, jury, and executioner is the Chinese Communist Party. They make decisions about what they get from their companies. And every company has senior Chinese Communist Party leadership on its board. So there is no distinction like there is here in the United States between the government, industry, and the decision about whether to take that data or not. And so this whole Project Texas thing, this $1.5 billion initiative, isn't a real thing when we talk about American national security and American information.
Stu, you know, TikTok has grown, as I mentioned, more than 100 million users just in the U.S., right? 100 million monthly users in the U.S. And according to Google data, nearly half of Gen Z is using apps like TikTok instead of a search engine like Google. Do you think the White House and President Biden understand the implications of an official ban on this app? We pointed out with Kristen, they actually used it to campaign in 2020.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the piece of evidence I would use is that a couple of weeks ago, the Commerce Secretary gave an interview in which he said, I think the politician in me thinks that we're going to lose every voter under 35. So this is definitely in the mind of at least one cabinet official in the Biden administration.
Stu, and what is your sense from the TikTok CEO and your sense? Do you think this is actually going to happen? Is the United States going to ban the biggest app in the world?
Look, you know, the Trump administration tried to do it 3 years ago, and if the Biden administration paused for 3 years and is trying to do it again, I think they are serious. From TikTok's point of view, this is a do-or-die crisis for them. The CEO said, we had an hour together, and he said, look, my number one priority is building trust. If TikTok's banned in America, it's unclear whether TikTok can survive in the world.
Yeah, and to point this out, people may not know this, but, and you correct me if I'm wrong, TikTok hasn't even made a profit yet. They're spending billions to sort of move this data off Chinese servers into U.S. and European servers.
Right. So they're saying we're spending $2 billion a year to silo our American operations in America and our European operations in Europe, mostly in Ireland. And because of that, they could be profitable right now, but they're not because of this $2 billion a year expense. Now, Angela, a lot of people, as Jamil pointed out, don't believe this is a real solution.
Angela, you now put your lawyer hat on, not your TikToker hat. Is there a freedom of speech issue here? Is there some type of business law that's being violated, especially if Oracle is involved and there's an American company that has a stake in this?
I don't think that there's any freedom of press issue here or freedom of speech. I think that any company today that is regulated by U.S. laws actually has the ability to curtail speech and curtail what's happening on their platform. So I don't see this as a legal
TikTok
issue.
couldn't make a freedom of speech issue that they're a communications platform, people use it to communicate, and the U.S. is infringing on that right?
No, because the issue there has to be if they were the only platform. But the fact that there are so many other platforms out there, they could technically not have that right.
Jamil, talk to me about the effort up on Capitol Hill, because anytime you look up and you see senators and representatives talking about this, you actually have Democrats and Republicans. They are aligned, not on a lot of things in Washington, but they're aligned on sort of their hate for TikTok.
Well, that's exactly right, Tom. I mean, you know, when Joe Biden and Donald Trump agree on something, it's got to tell you something, right? And you've got not just them, it's Mike Gallagher and Raja Krishnamurthy and Mark Warner and Marco Rubio. I mean, there's a bipartisan agreement that this is a real national security threat. As Stu points out, the Biden administration has examined this issue for 3 years and come to the exact same conclusion as the Trump administration, which is that TikTok is a very real national security threat. And they're willing to even sacrifice all these potential voters, knowing that there's a political challenge, because of the actual severe national security consequences of allowing this to continue over time.
Stu, can you explain to us the Oracle's role, which is a U.S. company, their role if they teamed up with TikTok, or if they had a sort of role in controlling parts of this company?
So if you might remember 3 years ago, Oracle almost bought TikTok before that failed, but they continue to be a partner. So TikTok has hired Oracle to store all its U.S. data. And on top of that, TikTok is saying that Oracle engineers can look at the software code that recommends which videos TikTok gives to users to make sure that China can't influence what videos are shown to Americans.
Angela, I just asked you what would happen if TikTok disappeared tomorrow. There are so many people that make their livelihood off TikTok, so many people who enjoy TikTok, who love it. What happens next?
Well, I think we now have an economy of creators, so I'm not concerned of what's going to happen next. These creators will just move to a different platform. They will move somewhere else, and they will continue their livelihood.
What is the competition like? Because social media is always sort of reinventing itself. There was Friendster, and then Facebook, and then Twitter, and Instagram. Now you have TikTok, which seems to be the king right now.
Yes, it is the king right now, but let's see tomorrow. Who knows?
Okay. Angela, Stu, Jamil, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much all for joining Top Story. Very lively discussion. We appreciate it. We want to move on now to some disturbing allegations at a Virginia mental hospital where 7 deputies and 3 hospital employees have been charged with the murder of a man killed in custody. The victims' families and attorneys viewing surveillance footage from inside that jail and hospital where he later died, they say he was tortured and then smothered to death. Katie Beck has this one.
Ivo Atenio's mother says her son was tortured by deputies after a transport to a mental hospital.
He was murdered. They smothered the breath out of my baby.
Today, 3 employees of the mental hospital charged with second-degree murder for their role in Ivo Atenio's death. This after 7 Henrico County Sheriff's deputies were charged with second-degree murder charges in the incident, all currently on administrative leave. Attorneys say 28-year-old Ivo Atenio was at home amidst a mental health crisis. Deputies responding after receiving a call he'd been seen gathering solar-powered lawn lights from a neighbor's yard. Atenio's family and his attorneys say days later in custody during intake at a mental hospital in handcuffs and shackles that he was smothered to death by deputies.
Can someone explain to me why my brother is not here right now? Someone explain to me why my mother can't sleep, can't eat. We're broken.
The area's top prosecutor saying he died from being piled on and couldn't breathe.
It's just cruel and a demonstration of power that is unlawful. I mean, it killed him.
Thursday, Atenio's family and attorneys viewed surveillance footage from inside the jail and mental hospital where Atenio later died. Attorneys and family describing Atenio left naked in his jail cell, handled harshly into transport, and then during intake at the mental hospital, a brutal 11-minute pummeling, where they say with restraints on, Atenio is pushed off a chair onto the floor, suffering the full weight and force of 10 people on top of him.
You could see his hair being pulled, and you could see knees toward his head. It was excruciating to watch.
The Henrico Police Union says they're standing behind the deputies. An attorney for one deputy saying Ateneo was being combative at intake and had a history of mental illness incidents, and says these charges are premature.
I believe is still that they were doing their job and they're doing it the best they could. None of them are known as bullies.
My son was treated like a dog, worse than a dog. I saw it with my own eyes on the video.
You can see and feel that emotion right there. Katie Beck joins us now from Virginia. Katie, I have to ask you, is there any indication this video will be released publicly?
Well, Tom, the Commonwealth attorney here says that video is a key piece of evidence in her case, and to preserve the integrity of the ongoing investigation, she's not going to be releasing it at this time. Ateneo and his attorneys both say transparency is required to get justice. They feel like it should be released so that the public can see what really happened.
And then, as you stated in your piece, one deputy's attorney said he thinks the charges are premature. Well, what's next for this case, and can he explain that?
Well, there is an ongoing investigation by the state police, and an autopsy does need to still be completed. In addition to that, the charges are going to go to the grand jury next week, where the official determination on what charges will stick will occur before the grand jury. They'll hear evidence on that. So that's what's next in this case. We'll be sure to be watching and see where it goes from here.
Okay, Katie Beck for us tonight. Katie, we appreciate it. We want to head to Washington now, and the newly released video of that collision between a Russian warplane and a U.S. drone. The declassified images showing the Russian jet spraying fuel directly into the path of the drone over the Black Sea this week. Officials now saying there is no question where the orders to harass came from. Courtney Kuby has more from the Pentagon.
The dramatic new video showing the midair showdown, all captured by a camera on the unmanned American Reaper drone. You can see the Russian fighter jet approaching the drone from behind, then spraying jet fuel on it. There is no collision, the drone's propeller intact. Then another approach by the Russian jet and more jet fuel. The moment of impact is not shown on the video, but later the drone's propeller visibly damaged after it was struck by the Russian jet. The $32 million drone was then downed in the Black Sea. The U.S. says 2 Russian jets made 19 passes over the drone in international airspace before the collision. The Russian government denies any aggressive action or impact occurred. The Biden administration saying they declassified the video to prove Russia is lying.
Given the reckless and dangerous behavior, and to demonstrate publicly what type of actions the Russians had taken, we felt that it was important to provide this imagery.
The U.S. assesses the actions of the Russian pilots were approved by top Kremlin leaders, according to 3 U.S. officials familiar with the intelligence, though the actual collision appears to be pilot error. Russia insists the drone was in temporary Russian airspace, though the Pentagon today saying the Reaper stayed about 50 miles or more from Russian-occupied Crimea. Tonight, the American drone is on the bottom of the Black Sea. Still no U.S. efforts to recover the wreckage, but the U.S. says the Russians are trying.
We do have indications that Russia is likely making an effort to try to recover MQ-9 debris.
The Pentagon says they were able to remotely erase any sensitive information from the drone in case it ends up in Russian hands.
All right, Courtney Kuby joins us now from the Pentagon. Courtney, I know you have some breaking news and a major headline on Ukraine tonight as well, saying that Poland will send Ukraine 4 MiG fighter jets. Has the White House responded, and are they explaining why they have yet to send American F-16s over there?
They are, Tom. They're saying that no matter what the Polish announcement was to send these 4 MiGs in the coming weeks, that is not going to influence the U.S. decision. The White House saying that they are still standing behind their decision not to send F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine, despite the fact that the Ukrainian government has been asking for them, if not begging for them, for months now. The White House saying they have not made that decision to go forward with it. Now, I will say we do expect another weapons package for Ukraine in the next few days. Not expected to include those fighter jets, though, Tom.
Okay. And then, Courtney, if we can go back to that video, has Russia responded to the drone versus the Russian jet video?
They have not. We heard from them almost immediately after the first allegations of this from European Command 2 days ago. But since the video came out, they've been silent, Tom.
Okay, Courtney Kuby, great to have you on Top Story tonight. We want to move on now back here at home just days after 2 of the largest bank failures in U.S. history. First Republic Bank being rescued by Wall Street with a $30 billion lifeline. It's an effort to show a sign of confidence in the banking system. This as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was on Capitol Hill insisting Americans' deposits are safe and facing a grilling, we should say. NBC News business and data reporter Brian Chung joins us now with more. Brian, first, I want to get to the news today when it comes to First Republic. Tell us a little bit about that. Banks coming together and ponying up $30 billion.
Yeah, Tom, I mean, it was interesting because after the failure of two banks over the weekend, the concern shifted to San Francisco-based First Republic. It shares somewhat similar characteristics, although not quite as similar to Silicon Valley Bank and Signature, which went under. But there were deposit outflows, customers taking money out of the bank, which ultimately prompted 11 of the largest banks in the United States to put $30 billion into the bank. Now, that's a sign of confidence that, well, we as the largest institutions feel comfortable putting that money in there. And a source familiar with the matter tells me that this was actually the result of conversations between Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, and JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon. There were conversations had as early as Tuesday about this maneuver.
Yeah, I got to ask you, though, anecdotally, I've spoken to a few people who have their money at First Republic Bank, and they're very nervous. A couple of them have pulled their money out. How does the bank get back confidence, right? And I know it's got this infusion of cash now, but people are reading the headlines, and they know only a certain amount of their money is going to be insured. Still a lot of money, but there's a lot of money to lose.
Exactly. Well, what happened was that the Federal Reserve on Sunday announced this liquidity facility that banks that were seeing those types of deposit outflows, as people like those you're talking to who are pulling money out, can tap into the central bank to get liquidity fast if there is that quick draw of money. But apparently that wasn't enough, because First Republic appeared to face enough pressure that they felt the need to get extra help somewhere else. So instead of it coming from the government, now it's coming from the private sector, although, again, with a little bit of brokerage from the Treasury Secretary.
And sometimes perception is reality. So all those bank customers, they have to get their confidence back into that bank. I do want to ask you about the recession. We were talking a lot about this on this show last year. And sort of that talk has sort of faded up until now, right? And there's some sort of new metrics people are looking at saying there's fears the recession could be coming closer than people thought.
Yeah, well, I mean, prior to the happenings over the weekend, there was already a concern about high inflation and whether or not the Federal Reserve was going to be able to get inflation back down closer to where they wanted, which is around 2%. It had essentially been going kind of sideways for the past few months. But add on to the fact, now you have these financial stability concerns for the Federal Reserve, which is set to meet next week. The concern is going to be if they raise interest rates too aggressively, could they break another bank? But if they move rates too slowly, could that let inflation get out of control? It's a really difficult tightrope to walk.
I know you don't have a crystal ball. What's the sense on Wall Street and amongst you financial reporters about how long we're going to sort of be in this zone where people are worried about their deposits and we're keeping a close eye on the regional banks?
Yeah, well, when it comes to just kind of keeping an eye on these types of things, it's really tough. You don't have a lot of visibility into the day-by-day flows in and flows out of deposits going into a bank. Really, only regulators have that ability, which is one reason, by the way, there's a lot of calls for checks on the regulators to see how could they have missed what happened over the weekend. But look, by and large, what's happening with the concerns about a recession in tandem with what's happening here with the banking sector, it underscores that there's got to be a lot of sensitivity among regulators and also among everyday people.
Watching regulators, but also watching some of those bank CEOs and what they're doing with the stocks for those banks. Okay, exactly. Brian Chung, we appreciate a lot of great reporting. We want to turn out to the severe weather slamming the south tonight. Tornado watch is in effect for parts of Texas and Oklahoma, where heavy wind, hail, rain already coming down in Duncan. And in Haltom City, Texas, dark funnel clouds forming with 22 million in the risk area for those storms tonight. We want to get right over to NBC News meteorologist Angie Lassman, making a top story surprise appearance tonight. She joins us now in studio with the forecast. Angie, always great to see you.
Great to see you too, Tom. And I wish it was under better circumstances, because, boy, it's been a busy afternoon and evening in parts of the south where this same storm system that impacted California with all of that rain that we've been talking about for days has now moved across the country, and a line of thunderstorms has developed, some supercells that have popped up tornado warnings that have since expired near the Dallas area, but also the heavy rain that has left us with a flash flood warning right near Fort Worth and Dallas as well. We have plenty of severe thunderstorm warnings in effect right now, and these are going to go for at least another hour or so in a lot of these places that have seen already 2-inch hail, golf ball size hail, heavy rain leading to the flooding. More than 2 to 3 inches have fallen in some of those areas in a really quick amount of time, and we're still adding on additional rainfall, so be aware that some of those roadways could be flooded near the Dallas area. We're still going to be at risk for some of this strong to severe weather here through the rest of the evening. evening and again into tomorrow, we'll start to see that shift. But if you are in anywhere basically in southeastern Oklahoma or north central Texas, you'll still have the potential to see some of those thunderstorms popping up. But as I mentioned, the system continues its trek to the east, and we'll start to see that shift happen as far as the severe weather is concerned for tomorrow as well. Notice it'll be focused along the Gulf Coast, Tom, New Orleans, Mobile, Panama City, all in the bullseye for that tomorrow.
Okay, we know you guys will be busy through the end of the week. Angie, always great to see you. We now move overseas, where thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in France, clashing with police. While these protests have been going on for a while, we've been reporting on them here on Top Story. They're really heating up tonight after President Macron pushed his pension reform plans through the government, overriding the National Assembly along the way, which had never even voted. Molly Hunter has all the details tonight from Paris.
Across the country tonight, French cities grinding to a halt. In the capital, thousands of people taking to the streets after French President Emmanuel Macron forced through an unpopular bill that raises the retirement age from 62 to 64 years old. And he did it without a vote. Protesters tonight throwing bottles at a police barricade and setting tires on fire. Police responding with tear gas and water cannons. Across every major city tonight, similar scenes. A woman in Lyon saying the air was so thick with tear gas she couldn't breathe.
C'est dégueulasse, quoi. On se dit, à quoi ça sert d'avoir une Assemblée nationale?
Thursday afternoon, France's Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne, an ally of Macron, triggering a constitutional tool that allowed the bill through with no floor vote.
On ne peut pas faire de paris sur l'avenir de nos retraites. Cette réforme est nécessaire.
The uproar immediate. Opposition members shutting down Parliament, belting the French national anthem. Macron has long insisted the reforms are essential to ensure the pension system doesn't collapse. Mathematically speaking, the argument is the country will not be able to support future generations.
C'est honte pour le gouvernement qui continue, qui n'écoute pas le peuple.
In the last 3 months alone, there have been 8 consecutive national strikes. Millions of French workers, from teachers to police to refinery workers, have joined in. A recent poll by AFP finds a majority of the French support the protest movement against pension reform, and 59% support bringing the country to a standstill over it. The streets of Paris littered with trash, garbage collectors also striking, leaving more than 6,000 tons of waste on the streets, according to Paris City Hall.
If we encounter more garbage, though, we'll probably visit other parts of the city because we don't want to smell it.
France's civil aviation has asked airlines to reduce flights from Paris's Orly airport by 20% today. Travelers have been told to expect disruptions due to the strikes. But the unions and the protesters keeping the pressure on. We will continue, this man says. At the end of the day, our needs and our demands.
Now, Tom, as far as what happens next, politically speaking, the opposition now has 24 hours to put forward a vote of no confidence. That's incredibly rare in France, but if it passes, it brings down not only Macron's government, but also the president himself. Out on the street, though, protests will continue, and actually the protest down at La Place de la Concorde apparently is going to start moving up the Champs-Élysées. Across the country, protests tonight have brought cities to a standstill, and the unions, Tom, have announced they will protest and strike again tomorrow. Tom?
Okay, Molly Hunter on the ground for us in Paris with all those protests. Still ahead tonight, a Massachusetts school on lockdown. Students sheltering in place after a reported stabbing. The arrests made late today will explain what happened. Plus, a disturbing video out of Pennsylvania, a student seen knocking a wheelchair down the stairs, out of the reach of its user. How his university is responding tonight. And crime ring busted a group of thieves who stole millions of dollars worth of jewelry, mostly from elderly victims, arrested, where police seized their massive bounty. Top Story just getting started on this Thursday night. We're back now with the arrest of a theft crime ring of Romanian nationals who are accused of stealing millions in jewels in San Diego. Authorities saying they targeted elderly Asian victims. NBC's Stephen Romo has more, including images of them showing off what they stole.
You're watching an elderly Asian woman being attacked in San Diego. The gold necklace ripped away from her, part of a string of crimes against the Asian community. San Diego police saying the suspects in this case, who they believe are part of a Romanian crime network, are still at large. But federal authorities announcing arrests on another notorious crime ring, allegedly preying upon the area's elderly and Asian population. Romanian police, assisted by the FBI, raiding a luxurious home, seizing pricey sports cars bought in California, along with millions in cash. The alleged profits from a highly coordinated criminal scheme.
Our office is proud to hold these people accountable for targeting elderly and Asian communities in San Diego.
One of the suspects, Floria Ghiaccio, flaunting some of the loot in Romania, including gold jewelry and watches, and holding gold bars. Prosecutors included the image in charging documents. And here's another one. This image shared by Floria on Facebook, appearing to show her with her arms full of cash. Authorities say the suspects are expected to forfeit treasures, including a Lamborghini purchased in all cash for more than $260,000, a $230,000 Ferrari, along with $733,000 worth of gold bars and coins, and more than $119,000 worth of stolen jewelry, watches, cash, and unemployment money, all according to the criminal complaint. Investigators say the ring would often send women to target older Asian victims, tricking them and taking their property to sell at pawn shops before using that money to buy gold and other high-end items. One Facebook message exchange between suspects translated to, "Here everyone makes money," and "They are very gullible," according to the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Sometimes they would actually use force, but most of the time what they would do is go up to people and offer to sell some sort of fake jewelry and put it on them, and then they would steal their real jewelry.
However, those tactics escalated into full-blown robberies, according to the complaint, which also alleges wire fraud and mail fraud. Now, 6 Romanian nationals face federal charges in the U.S. for their alleged role in the crime ring, and it was largely a family affair. Their sons, Marius and Gabriel, Gabriel's wife, Larissa, and Marius' former girlfriend, Argentina Alexandru, all part of what authorities say is the Valcia crime ring, run by Romanian national Constantin Sandu. The 6 suspects applied for refugee status to stay in the U.S. before committing these crimes, according to that criminal complaint.
These are the main players. So I think in terms of the Ghiaccios, this is a very, very heavy hit to them.
So right now, only Edward and his wife are in custody. They're due back in court on Friday. As for the other 4 named in the complaint, they're all believed to still be in Romania right now, but there are federal warrants out for their arrest. Back to you.
Okay, Stephen, thank you for that. When we come back, IKEA agreeing to pay up in a massive class action lawsuit. The company accused of printing customers' credit cards on receipts. You can find out if you're eligible for a payout. We'll explain. All right, we're back now with Top Stories newsfeed, and we begin with the stabbing at a high school in Massachusetts. The incident happening inside the Brockton Therapeutic Day School just after classes began. Authorities say a 17-year-old was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The suspect, identified as a fellow student, was taken into custody. This comes just 2 days after the shooting death of another student from that school. A Pennsylvania student has been suspended from his college hockey team after pushing a woman's wheelchair down a flight of stairs. Surveillance footage shows Mercyhurst student Carson Briere at a bar in Erie sitting on the chair before getting up and pushing it down the stairs. According to witnesses, the user of that chair was in the bathroom at the time. Briere, who is the son of a Philadelphia Flyers GM and former NHL player Daniel Briere, has since apologized for his behavior. The school and Erie police are investigating the matter. And IKEA has agreed to pay out $24 million to its customers. Anyone who shopped at the furniture store between 2017 and 2019 could be eligible to claim part of this settlement. The Swedish-based company agreeing to the payments after it was accused of leaving the last 5 digits of customer credit cards on receipts. Payments are expected to run between $30 and $60 per person. Tonight on Top Stories Global Watch, we start in Colombia, where the death toll is rising following that mine explosion we told you about last night. At least 21 people now confirmed dead after efforts to rescue 10 miners trapped underground failed. That blast triggered late Tuesday by a buildup of gas that was then sparked by a worker's tool. The president today calling each of those fatalities a, quote, social and government failure. And in Greece, a police vehicle drove through a crowd of protesters. You can see the video here. It shows the vehicle crashing into a crowd, then appearing to knock one protester over. The demonstrators gathering to protest the deadly train collision that killed 57 people last month. Protesters nationwide demanding updated rail safety guidelines and oversight. And a dramatic rescue in Peru where a toddler was saved from a deadly landslide. You have to look closely. The new video shows the toddler completely covered in mud. You see him right there. At least 2 people are dead and several others missing after that major landslide struck northern Peru. Thousands of homes damaged or destroyed. The landslide brought on by heavy rains from Cyclone Yaku, which first made landfall last week. Okay, now to an update on those devastating floods in Turkey, ravaging the same region that was struck by the deadly earthquakes just more than a month ago. We brought you some of the devastating images that were just coming into the newsroom last night. Tonight, our Keir Simmons with some more reporting.
Tonight, at least 14 people are dead and many more still missing after torrential flooding hit Turkey in the same area where devastating earthquakes struck just weeks before. Trucks washed off roads, highways collapsing in on themselves, and people fighting for their lives against the raging currents. Rescue teams desperately searching for survivors after the flash flooding turned roads into rivers. Responders using ropes and ladders to pull people from rushing waters. These devastated communities left to clean up the destruction again. Just 1 month after massive earthquakes rocked the region.
The situation has threatened their ability to recover, to be able to decide what their next steps are. We're seeing families who are right back at square one and trying to decide what to do next, where to go.
Those catastrophic earthquakes killing over 44,000 people in the country and leaving thousands more injured and homeless. Now, families living in makeshift shelters after flooding submerged their homes.
The Turkish communities, the people that I met when I was responding directly and the responders I spoke to on the ground, it's absolutely incredible to see the resilience of people despite all of the things that they have faced so far. We are witnessing the true power of humanity.
Many people already displaced by the quakes, forced to start over again after this latest natural disaster. Keir Simmons, NBC News.
All right, coming up after this short break, an NBC News investigation, a town in Louisiana, a factory, and what the EPA and scientists say is in the air. Is it the reason the area has one of the highest cancer rates in the country? What's being done to protect these Americans, and why has it taken so long? Stay with us. We're back now with an NBC News investigation. We are following a long-standing battle in a small town located in an 85-mile corridor in Louisiana known as Cancer Alley. The EPA has said for years that children who attend a Louisiana school there are being exposed to unsafe levels of a likely human carcinogen. 7 years later, the children are still going to that school and still breathing that toxic air. Why? NBC News senior and legal investigative correspondent Cynthia McFadden looked for answers.
4-year-old George says he loves going to school at 5th Ward Elementary in Reserve, Louisiana. But according to the federal government, going to school here could be shortening George's life, as well as the lives of his 400 or so, primarily black, classmates.
One of your neighbors says it's like sending the kids to a gas chamber every day.
Exactly. 83-year-old Mary Hampton is George's great-grandmother. She lives a few blocks from the school. Her father bought the land, once worked by slaves, giving parcels to his 9 children.
He thought he was leaving us a legacy. He actually left us a death sentence. They don't care about us. It's racial. They don't care. Y'all just sit there and inhale and die.
Hampton and her lifelong friend Robert Taylor have been fighting to have the kids moved from the school. And the air quality improved ever since the EPA said 7 years ago that an unsafe level of a likely carcinogen called chloroprene was being emitted from the Danka plant right next door to the school. Danka makes a rubber used in wetsuits and other products, the only plant of its kind in the country.
We've been designated a sacrifice zone. I don't understand how they would be allowed to sacrifice the lives of us for anybody's profit. We had the highest cancer risk. EPA informed us of that. in 2017.
The highest cancer risk in the country.
In the country.
What was your reaction to that?
I was floored.
Though Denka says they've reduced emissions by 85%, air monitors near the school often register at levels far exceeding the recommended 0.2 level, as we saw when we visited with environmental scientist Wilma Subra.
What's the result?
Higher than 0.2 chloroquine concentration.
How much higher? I mean, sometimes I know it varies depending on wind and how much the plant is manufacturing, but I mean, what's the extreme?
I've calculated it here 10 times, 20 times, 50 times.
The acceptable level.
Acceptable level, yes.
Nevertheless, neither the state of Louisiana or the EPA has forced the plant to comply with the 0.2 recommendation or ordered the children moved, nor have members of the local school board. Patrick Sanders, the recently retired head of the school board, who's a local mortician, grew up right next to the plant. Many of his neighbors have died of cancer, including his father and sister. He's fighting cancer for the second time.
There are going to be a lot of people sitting at home going, hold it a second. Why wouldn't you at least move them as far away from that plant as you could?
I would agree with those people for the safety of those kids.
But you didn't do it.
No, I didn't.
Why?
I didn't. I didn't. I was one member of 11. It takes a majority of the school board to make this decision.
But did you stand up and say, this is wrong, we've got to fix it?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
There's not a reason as to why not that I can definitively give you. Did I stand up and beat on the table? No.
Do you wish you had?
Looking back, yes.
But a glimmer of hope just as we're packing up to leave. The EPA sent us an email. They decided to file a lawsuit in federal court to require Denka to
significantly reduce hazardous chloroquine emissions from its neoprene manufacturing facility.
Yes, we won. That's what we're fighting for. Oh, my God.
But Robert Taylor is not so sure this will change anything.
An emergency order, you're worried, isn't going to do anything?
No, not while they're still operating.
You're saying shut them down.
Shut them. This should have been done years ago.
Shut them down for George and all the other people here who just want to breathe clean air.
Cynthia McFadden joins us now in studio. Cynthia, one of the things that stood out to me was that we know that cancer kills people in all parts of the country, but what this community says they've experienced and the EPA backed up is incredibly alarming.
Well, yeah, for most of the past decade, the cancer rate in this area, in this community, is higher than any place else in America. At one point, it was 50 times higher than any place else in America. And, you know, the EPA said something really shocking in one of its legal filings, that by the time a baby born in this community today is 2 years old, they will have had the same amount of cancer risk that the rest of us would have by the time we're 70. It's extraordinary.
No, it's unbelievable that it's happening in this country. So we have to ask you, what is the company saying and what's happened since the EPA filed suit?
Well, first, the company says that it is not increasing cancer risk. They deny it. They say they've reduced emissions by 85%, although they won't say 85% of what. And they say, look, we are not breaking any laws. We are going to continue to operate as we are operating. Now, on the EPA side, the EPA says we care desperately about these people. We're going to take action. We're the first administration that's really doubled down on this. And yet, so far, the school's still open, the kids are still going there, and the factory is still running.
You can't believe it. Okay, you're really thinking about those people tonight in that community. Cynthia, we thank you and your team for bringing us this story. And we thank you for watching Top Story tonight. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.